All right, welcome back, everyone. This is the Mad Make. This is the Trampled Underfoot because I'm mad. This is the Trampled Underfoot podcast show with your host Mark Lindsay and Eloy Escajedo.
Howdy. Yes, Thursday. Jim Dockrell. Don't you have a keen eye for detail? This messes up your whole week now. Well, I'm glad that somebody besides us schedules for this show. Yeah, there was a there. I won't say technical difficulties, but there were difficulties with technical systems on Tuesday, and we just couldn't do it. Things had to get cleaned up in the background, and here we are, all
Yeah,
bright, shiny, new, and ready to fall asleep. Man, I've been working my tail off this week. How about you?
yeah, it's been constant, dude. It's been a constant one thing after the. It's just one thing after the other. I'm not complaining. I guess you could call it complaining by saying it the way I'm saying it with dragging out my voice, but it's like
Yeah.
it's sort of like sometimes you wonder if there's any how there's periods in life where there's a normalcy to it where there's not much happening but you're content.
Yeah.
It may not be like extreme wow times, but it's sort of like a stability of nothing happen, like a calm ocean, right? Those
Yeah.
are good. I like those. And then there's the freaking wicked, like tsunamis crashing up against the rocks moments.
Yeah.
um those aren't, and potentially those tsunamis are a wild ride, but I like that calm
You and
water.
me both. I mean, I saw a quote, and I don't know who said it. I really don't. It was not attributed to anybody, but it was something along the lines, and I'm going to paraphrase. Yeah, my muscles ache, but I was able to get up this morning. My wallet isn't full, but my belly is. All in all, I don't have anything to complain about. And I thought, you know what? When you look at it like that, yeah, what is there really to complain about? There's always going to be something more. You want this shiny thing, or you want something new, something that's starting to wear out, or it's lost its sparkle and you want to replace it. There's always going to be something out there. Maybe you want to go visit some place or see some attraction. But all in all, I'm pretty stinking content. I don't have any complaints really. I've got it pretty damn good. So, you know, I don't really have anything to complain about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a miracle in itself, at least
Hmm.
from we're not um that we know of guaranteed or promised certain things.
Right.
We just know that we exist, and it is pretty spectacular. We're conscious. I mean, we don't know anything else, and there's lots to be thankful for, even though one may want that extra shiny thing that you're talking about or
Hmm.
whatnot. So yeah, I agree with that. Um, but then again, like in contrast to the mayhem compared to the calm and cool
Hmm.
bay, that
Hmm.
that that, that I like the calm cool bay bit
Oh, you and me
way.
both. You and me both. I mean, I like smooth sailing as well. I love hitting three green lights in a row, and that's just to show how low my standards are, really, how low I put that bar. If I don't even have to hit every light green, but if I can hit three of them in a row, it's a win. You know, I'm a happy guy,
Yeah,
but I won't jinx myself and say, wow, that was three green lights in a row,
yeah, because sure enough,
because sure as heck, I'm going to hit every one of them red on the way home, because you got to come back.
yeah. Well, in a month's time, as you know, I had my car screw up,
Hmm.
my neck screw up. It's still not right.
Yeah.
It's still not right. I pulled something terrible there.
Hmm.
Um, uh, some other odd things I can't think about just right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then my I had to pump out the septic
Mm-hmm.
because it was definitely, and so things got backed up, and that was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then any number of other things as well, and they may seem like little things, but they're not. Like muscle or
Sure.
whatever, that's painful. The car, well, that's how. And so I've taken, as you know, the bus, and it's funny because in a sense, doing that, it's quite the adventure because you're running around
Yeah.
in a different way than I normally. Well, I'm a hermit anyhow, but when you get on the bus and you get out into whatever location, it's almost like you've been teleported. It's a weird sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's my wild imagination, but it's a strange thing. Um, I've enjoyed it. Like
Mm-hmm.
within all the mayhem or whatnot, I've
Yeah.
enjoyed that aspect in a sense, um, because it's a different view than
Yeah.
what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So it's reminded me of when I was a kid, and my grandmothers mostly
Well,
would take me to the
mhm.
different shops across Miami, and we just bust there
Yeah.
when I was like a kid. And I remember those and riding there. And I today there was a lady that brought a dog onto the bus,
Mm-hmm.
little dog in a little
Yeah.
basket with a
Mm-hmm.
little push along wheelchair. Those you know
Mm-hmm.
move along little wheelchairs that you stand and follow. And she was with her dog,
Yeah.
and the dog was quite content. And looking at all these different things and different people with different issues,
Mm-hmm.
um, or different temperaments. You could see people jittery and nervous. Others are so accustomed to the ride. Just a bunch of stuff.
Are you starting to recognize faces, or is it just a different mix all the time?
One week it was the same people more or less in some cases, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're when I've gone, but I've gone at different hours.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Okay.
went to a different location, not 2 3 days ago, um, to a Home Depot. It's a very weird thing. Instead of getting in your car and going to Home Depot and then getting into
Yeah.
on a bus, and I arrived at the Home Depot, and they used to drive up right to the front of the mall because there's a mall
Mm-hmm.
that's still there that's been around, called Midway Mall, because it was midway from Miami to whatever out here. And now they built within the last 10, 15, 20 years a Home Depot. So there's that there. They used to drive up right to the front, but now they don't do that. So I had to walk a
Mm-hmm.
huge stretch inward.
Yeah.
And so you reminisce as you're walking. I said, man, I was a little kid, and I'd be walking all this with my grandmothers, and I could remember
Yeah.
scenarios and stuff. And so in a way, it's so cool, in that aspect. Just remembering things and putting things together in my head, like, oh yeah, that's right. Just because I'm using the bus,
Yeah.
because when
Yeah.
you're driving, you're in a different zone.
Yeah. Well,
You
not
know,
only that, you're on your own schedule and you can decide I'm going to make this right turn instead of that left turn. I'm going to go around this way.
yeah,
Or now forget about that store. I'm going to this one over here. You know. Whereas when you're relying on public transportation, you're A on their schedule and B you go where they will take you. You know.
yeah,
So
and you're interacting in a different way.
mhm.
That's key as well. So, whereas before I wouldn't bother, I just go to the place and come back. Now I have to.
Plan ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's been actually very good in a
Yeah.
sense, which is funny to say, but
Yeah.
it's true.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. I mean,
Does
uh,
it does it sound? I mean, you wouldn't take up that if you had to do it, you would do it, right?
well, yeah, if you have to do it, you're choiceless. I mean, it's either that or, sit around and wallow in misery. And what's the sense of that?
Yeah,
You know,
and you would find the good bits in it as you go about your day.
well, you'd try, but,
You try
and then work my butt off to get,
your
to get
car
my car
fixed.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no,
So,
but I've really found some pleasure in doing so. But then again, um,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
guess
can't
so.
jump up at 9 o'clock and go hit the drive-through. So,
No,
so
no, I
yeah.
can't do. I can't do that.
Hmm.
So I do have to. Well, but then again, I haven't been doing that. I don't go
Yeah.
to those McDonald's and Burger Kings. I don't do that anymore. I mean, I don't. I'm not saying I'll never do that,
Hmm.
but there's no way I'm going to pay $10, $15 for freaking number one or number
Well,
two.
it was never meant to be a steady diet anyway.
It
So,
wasn't,
uh,
but you could if you wanted to.
yeah, you sure you can do anything if you want. You can do anything once, but if you want to sit around eating chocolate all day, I mean, that's your prerogative to do so. But don't complain to me when you can't get out your door.
Well, my point was mainly that it's expensive anymore,
Yeah,
and it's
it
like
is.
in comparison, and it's like, well, why bother?
Yeah.
Why bother? It's not even pleasurable. Last time I went and I said, okay, screw it, and I paid $12 or whatever for the meal.
Mhm.
I was like, I feel even before coming back home with my meal, I feel eerily dissatisfied, and it was
Yeah.
because of the price. It just doesn't justify in
Well,
my head.
take a look at it. You can get online and you can check the menus and what have you. But anymore, if you compare the price to, the burger of your choice and the fries of your choice and the drink of your choice and what have you, it's not much difference between that and a single rib steak. You can get a
Right.
rib steak for $12, $13.
Yeah,
You're
you
going to
might as
pay
well.
more than that for a hamburger,
Yeah.
you know, and I can fire up the grill and cook hell out of that son of a gun.
Well, that's the thinking, Mark. That it's like I went to the subs place along. It's been a while now, like a year.
Hmm.
That I used to go with my friends. It's called Subrageous,
Hmm.
and they just make the best subs, dude. The
Local
cheese,
sandwich shops are local sandwich shops are the best. Period. That's all there is to it.
the thing doubled in price, dude.
Yeah.
My regular what pastrami sandwich that I would have,
Hmm.
it doubled in price. And if you add fries and the Coke and the this and the that and the cookies and this and that, it's like I was like, and the lady, she said, "Oh," because I said, "Wow," I couldn't help it. I said, "Wow, the prices jumped, didn't they?" And she said, "Well, yeah, it's just prices and what the same story,
Yeah. I mean,
like
everybody's paying higher prices. So,
everywhere across the board." So it's
mhm.
like it's better to prepare it at home, because
Yeah.
frankly, it's not satisfying, dude. It's not satisfying to pay. That's
Hmm.
something that just shy a year and a half ago, 2 years ago,
Hmm.
you were paying half
Yeah.
less. It's like, what?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. What can you say? I mean, it's odd in that a lot of places seem to be wanting to put themselves out of business because I understand if you have to raise prices. I really do if you have to.
yeah,
But when those prices get so high, when it's cheaper to go to a walk in, sit down restaurant and have a meal there than it is to go through the drive through, something's wrong. Something's wrong.
well, yeah, something ain't right.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, then I won't do that anymore,
Right.
you know. And that's that with that. And in fact, I think that they're trying for the cheaper prices and such. I heard, I haven't looked, but I
Hmm.
heard because that they're losing customers.
They are losing customers. In fact, you'll see occasional news reports around the country about fast food restaurants just closing down because nobody's going anymore. When it's $35 for a bucket of chicken, but you can go to Walmart and get fried chicken for $6.99. Gee, you know, which column am I going to go to on the abacus for that calculation? Six
Well, yeah,
bucks, $30. Yeah. Well, it's no wonder fast food joints are closing down.
yeah,
So,
it's all pretty freaking crazy, dude. And then
mhm,
I saw this one thing. I mean, everybody's feeling it as far as
mhm,
as I've I've seen. Um, Disney World. I saw this channel where they said, let's add up at the end of our vacation
Mhm.
how much we spent for Disney World, and it was insane.
Yeah.
It was thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's expensive to go anywhere and visit anything anymore. I mean, we complained about it back in the day, and I can remember the first time somebody told me that a hotel was $100 a night. I thought, well, hell, they better be bringing me all my meals and everything else for $100 a night. And now $100 a night's a bargain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
crazy between the hotel, the tickets to get into the park, like the whole thing.
Mhm.
In that one video that I had seen, they were like, "Yeah, this is what it is," but we did enjoy it. But still, I'm
Mhm.
like, it's you don't want to feel that you're being ripped off.
Right,
If you
right.
feel like you're being ripped off, or at least myself, I can't speak for other people. I've it doesn't, it's not pleasurable.
Yeah. Well, so that's how they say that the nation votes with its wallet, and that is the case. I mean, if you think a price is too high somewhere, I just don't go there.
That's
You
it.
know, and people vote with their wallet. I mean,
Yeah,
California's got a big thing right now where they raised the minimum wage to $20 an hour, and fast food joints are closing down because they have to raise their prices to cover that wage, and
yeah,
they're closing down. I mean, they're closing down McDonald's, they're closing down Burger Kings and Wendy's, and I mean, especially in high cost of living areas like San Francisco or Southern Cal, where you
yeah.
can't rent a place for less than 2,500, $3,000 a month.
It's insane, dude.
You know, and they think that that's going to help. Well, raising the wage to that high is not going to help because now nobody has a job. Nobody that works there has a job. They got to go find something else. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of mom and pop places just closing down because they can't afford to do it.
Yeah, the problem is that people love to spend other people's money, and and just
Well, I'm an
everything.
expert at that.
Well, everything falls on its on top of the next thing.
Sure.
You want to provide for
Mhm.
a municipality, a county, a
Sure.
state, and so from that you have to extract
Mhm.
funds from the citizenry. But the problem is that between the balance of that and the citizenry being able to have comfortable lives,
Mhm.
in juxtaposed with what they had most of the time throughout, I guess, the century. um, you know, uh, if they overdo it, the imbalance creates things similar to what's going on here. I mean, it,
Well,
it's what.
all I can say is this too shall pass because it's cyclical. We've been through things like this before and we'll go through them again. But things seem to kind of temper and mellow out. The price will never go back down to what it was, but it'll get easier to handle and we'll motor through it. I mean,
Oh well, there's no choice.
I long for the days of gas under $1 a gallon, but I know those days are gone. That's not coming back. I long for a $5 foot long at Subway. That's not coming back.
No.
So, but I have to also temper that with how often do I go to Subway?
Yeah.
It's been over a year because there are local places that do it so much better, you know?
Yeah. It is. I guess there are things that are cyclical, but in terms of this reaching into the pockets of individuals is long standing across time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's just how it works. I remember this one document that I encountered years back, and it was from a town in Spain, and I guess almost southern Spain. And in that town, the citizenry up uprised because um, they didn't have enough. The pressure of collecting money and supplies and such was so much
Mhm.
that the citizenry, some of them, started to rebel,
Mhm.
like with pitchforks and torches and such. And eventually they were put down, and they some were taken to a judge, um, and a few in specific. And one of them was Escajedo. His name was I think Pedro
Mhm.
Escajedo Santa,
Mhm.
with a few others. And in the summary of what of the guilty charge,
Mhm.
they said the judge said, and they shall be taken on the back of a beast, tied,
Mhm.
leading them to the jail.
Mhm.
They will be stripped of all their belongings. They will forfeit all their possessions.
Mhm.
And a town crier will walk in front of them uh, with with a loud voice, repeating the crimes that they had committed all throughout the town.
Mhm.
And then that they would be hung, and their heads severed from their shoulders, and their heads placed on spikes at the four main entrances to the town for their crimes. And it was like, whoa. But
Yeah.
the point is that the protests were due to that those pressures.
Mhm.
And um at least we don't have that.
Yet, you know. But like I say, we don't do that. We vote with our wallets, you know. And it's just like, well, look, if you're going to charge me that, then I'm just not going to come back.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. I mean, if you have to charge that, then sucks to be you because you're not getting my money.
Yeah, well, a lot of these people aren't doing it. These companies aren't
For
doing
sure.
it necessarily because on a whim necessarily.
No.
It's due to the chain reaction of everything
Oh,
getting so
there
expensive.
are a ton of variables in there. I mean,
Yeah.
people like to use gas prices as an example. Well, it's these greedy oil companies. I did my research on this because I had when I had an English teacher who liked to harp on that, and finally I got tired of it. I never argued with him. I never said a word, but I had to write up a paper on a topic that I had researched. And so I chose gas prices and the greedy profits, unreasonable oil profits.
Hmm.
And it turns out that that was the government because I went back and the earliest numbers I could find were the 1920s. And this was, I want to say 2003 that I did this paper. And for every dollar's worth of product in the 1920s they sold, they made 10 cents in profit.
Yeah.
So for every dollar they sold, their profit was 10 cents. And I couldn't go year by year, but I could go decade by decade. And all the way up to the year 2000, at that time, for every dollar of product they sold, their profit was 10 cents. It stayed the same
Yeah.
decade by decade by decade.
Yeah.
But what did increase was the taxes,
Yeah.
and on each step,
Yeah.
you know, that may not tax you at the pump, but that's built into the price because they have taxed the truck that
Yeah.
delivered to fill up the gas station.
Oh yeah.
They
Yeah.
taxed the pipeline. They taxed everything on a per gallon or per barrel or per month basis.
Yeah.
So all this stuff adds up, and we wonder why gas is 3.80 a gallon.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, but it's little things. It's it's things like that
hmm
across the economy
hmm
that
well,
add up to create the pressures of the average citizen
well,
across the
that's
country.
and I know I sound like a broken record on some of this, but that's also built into other prices because look at the number of trucks that are on the highway now. There are fewer trains running, there are fewer pipelines in operation. We haven't kept up with our infrastructure. I mean, Linda showed me a picture today earlier. The heat down in Texas has caused the concrete at this one bridge abutment to expand so much that it actually buckled and shattered, and that freeway was down from 4 lanes to one.
Yeah.
And that's just lack of maintenance. That's lack of working on the roads
Yeah.
because the money's got to go somewhere else. So now there's an artery that's down. So all these trucks have to go find another detour because, I don't know about you, but I'm not driving 80,000 pounds of anything over a concrete road that's breaking
Well, yeah.
by itself, you know. So but it all just kind of snowballs from there. And every time the price of fuel goes up, the cost to deliver goes up. There are more trucks on the road today than there have ever been, and fewer trains running.
Yeah. There's more people.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I mean, just here locally, we used to get at least 4 trains a day with the lumber that was being shipped out and the produce that was being shipped out. This area was a huge, huge center for agricultural products. Well, when the timber industry got regulated out of business here in this state, they moved. They're down south, where Steve is now, down south. Um, when they moved out of here, the local, California Oregon Railroad, they went into bankruptcy and they closed down. We've been back here just a little under 12 years. I've seen 3 trains in those 12 years on those tracks. 3 trains, and it used to be 4 or 5 a day. So with those trains gone, any of the produce that was being shipped out of here now go on trucks. So you've got just fleets of trucks hauling produce out of here where they used to just get loaded on rail cars and one trip down south or
Yeah.
up north. So that's just a microcosm of what's going on all over the place. And when it costs you more to ship a product, the price
It
goes
goes
up.
downhill,
Yeah.
and we get the brunt of it.
hmm I mean,
Yeah.
on a maker scale, kind of another one to demonstrate it. Uh, a friend of mine back in Wisconsin, he linked me to the place where he gets his hardwoods, and I was looking at some of these prices, going, "Oh my God, I don't believe you're paying that much." But then I thought, well, wait a minute, you're on the West Coast, right, situated in between several of the West Coast's biggest shipping ports. So it's got to go past you to get back east where they are. And like I'm paying $8 a board foot for some of the materials they're paying $20 and $25 a board foot for. So I feel pretty fortunate in that regard because it comes to me right off the boat. It was probably on the boat yesterday. And I can get it for a heck of a lot cheaper price because they haven't shipped it over the Rocky Mountains and across the Great Plains and all that other good stuff. And every mile costs more money. So, you know. But anyway, I sound like an old man screaming, "Get off
No,
my lawn." And I remember the good old days when cereal was 19 cents a
I
lot,
started it. I started it.
like that.
I
Well,
want to put some Tiger Balm on my neck because it's really getting me. Give me,
oh, okay.
give me
All
one
right.
second.
All right. Time's up. All right. Let's see here. Not a whole heck of a lot of comments. Just check out the reported increase in profits from McDee's and the pay package of their executives get. You'll get an answer. No, that it doesn't even cover an eighth of it, Jim. Doesn't cover even a fraction of it. It's universal. And whatever McDonald's CEO or top executives get doesn't have anything to do with what I'm paying for russet potatoes at the supermarket. It's a bunch of different factors. But that it doesn't really it doesn't jibe. So let's see here. Um, Frankie, how do you doing, Frankie? Jim says we're still under $100 a night here, including all taxes and fees, because there aren't any. Yeah, well, when when a 4-star hotel in your area is a tent out back, then yeah. So, but you can bet the farmer ain't getting any extra. Well, they got to raise their prices too, because they got to pay for fuel, they got to pay for the seed, they got to pay for this, that, and the other. And when their prices go up, they have to raise their prices as well. So we're all just trying to get along, every one of us. I mean, it in some ways it's pretty bad, but in other ways it's only, I don't know. I'm a cautious optimist. I'm not a glasses half full kind of guy or glasses half empty kind of guy. I'm you gonna drink that kind of guy. It it could be a heck of a lot worse, but it could be a heck of a lot better. And I still think this too shall pass. You know, we've been through worse. I mean, maybe not in terms of dollars, but if you adjust for inflation, we have been through worse. I mean, I remember, oh my God, I remember 76, 77, 78. I remember prime lending rates in the 20% for a mortgage, you know. Um, and
I,
that,
I saw I
go
saw a
ahead.
video about that. No, I just wanted to say I have something to say about that. I did see a video about that, but go
Mhm.
on.
Well, I mean, all I'm getting at is people hear that, well, yeah, but you could rent a house for $125 a month. Yeah, but when you're bringing home 80 or $90 a week, $125 is a lot of money, you know. So go ahead.
I saw a video about that, and although people made less in the video, they explained that although people made less back then,
Hmm.
the prices of homes were less, even though the percentage
Hmm.
was higher.
Yeah.
But the prices of the homes were lower,
Hmm.
and even though the wages were lower,
Hmm.
um, they could save up to get in.
Hmm.
Whereas today, within a year, 2 years time, I think that they said, eh, on
Hmm.
average, like if they wanted to, they'd be paying for 30 years, but they get
Yeah.
in within 2 years of saving for that
Right.
deposit. And it would only take up, I don't remember exactly, but I believe it was like half a year to a year of their. In other words, there was they could get in, and then they had their 30 year, but the time for them to collect, to save in order to get that deposit down was
Hmm.
shorter. And
Yeah.
today he put the side by side number, considering wages today at what they are,
Hmm.
the prices of the houses that have increased in
Hmm.
order to put that down. In other words, at least in the housing market,
Hmm.
and I guess everything else is included, but to get in is a huge leap compared to what it was before, even though people before were making less. So in comparison, at least on that, in that metric, in terms of
Yeah.
according to what they said,
Hmm.
um, that there is a big difference in
There,
terms of that.
yeah, I will agree. There is a big difference. Generally speaking, and I'm speaking as I'm putting on my recovering real estate agent's hat on now. Yes, I used to sell real estate. Um, Generally speaking, to qualify for a loan to buy a house, you 1/3 of your income servicing debt was the that was the cutoff point. If more than 1/3 of your household income was servicing debt, the banks wouldn't even talk to you. It was generally accepted that you needed 20% of the purchase price to put a down payment
Yeah.
on a house.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily the case anymore. There are a lot of programs out there, USDA, things of that nature, where you can get no money down loans. Your monthly payments are higher, but you don't have to come up with a huge down payment to qualify for these loans. I will agree with you that the price of real estate, depending upon where you are, is off the chain. It's off the charts. Try to buy a house anywhere in California for less than $750,000. You're just not going to do it. But there are still places out there and about where you can pick and choose for 200,000 or less. What I see, not everybody, but I see what a lot of people are complaining about is they want to live in these high population density areas where the cost of living is enormous, and especially like Southern California. Well, who can afford to live in Southern California? I'm 63. I can't afford to live in Southern California. That's one of the many reasons why I don't. I feel sorry for anybody on the West Coast who's just starting out and trying to buy a home, because the West Coast is expensive. It always has been.
Yeah. If you consider, so if you consider the major cities
Mm-hmm,
and people, so generationally,
mm-hmm,
the generations of our parents,
mm-hmm,
which were the same generation, funny enough how that works, for you and I,
mm-hmm,
um, and our grandparents, although in this case, for me, I'm talking about my parents since they came here when they were young.
mm-hmm,
My grandparents came when they were older, so they had, but then they bought a house too. They built their own house. They were able to do that
mm-hmm.
off of working people's wages. But the way that my parents were able to do that was leaving the little Havana area and coming out over here. But if they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
have done something over there and purchased,
Mm-hmm.
they could have. It would have been more expensive, but they could have.
Right.
Well, town grew up around here. But what I'm saying is that generationally, a person today or a family today, starting off, um, they don't have to spend that 500 grand or 300 grand or whatever that, to get
Mm-hmm.
into a house in these major places that have everything. They could go somewhere else, but like in the middle of, like, I guess, let's say some place in Missouri with a little bit more, but the problem is that that's dependent on their jobs.
Right. Sure.
There's so many factors that some
Yeah,
people.
there absolutely are. But then again, you're not going to live when you live in an area that the average price of the home is $650,000. Good luck getting a house, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. And believe me, as a guy who's had to do it, that might mean you have to change careers. That might mean you have to move. I've done it. If you can't make it where you're at, that's the market telling you two things. You need to generate more income, or you need to live in a lower cost of living area.
Well, what they've been saying, or at least putting the pieces together, and I'll just say, is that due to the fact that the dollar um, loses its buying potential, there's inflation involved, and
Yep.
that's been going on since the beginning.
Yep. That's
Because
one
every
factor.
time,
Yeah.
the government creates a new batch of money in order to, let's say,
Service our debt.
service or even to fund whatever they want to
Hmm.
fund, so they add money to the dollar loses whatever
Sure.
force. Well, what putting pieces together, what a lot of investors have done, and they've always done, but now they've really gone
Mhm.
heavy duty, is to enter different areas, markets, and buy up all available land, properties, and so on, because the houses always maintain and surpass the amount that the dollar loses each year.
Yeah, on average, and this has been a trend. Now there are spikes up and down. There will always be peaks and valleys because all markets are local and all markets are volatile. It's supply and demand. But if you go back to the turn of the 20th century, the 19th to the 20th century, when they started keeping records on this stuff, and you look at the value of land, no matter what market you're in, you're going to see that on average, real estate appreciates at a rate of about 5% per year. Your wages don't go up 5% a year, but it'll go up a little bit and then it'll come down, go up and then it'll come down, it'll go up and then it'll come down. But when you average it all out over the decades, it's about 5% a year. There may be a 3 year stretch where it's down less than that, where it loses money. We saw that in 2008. We went for about 5 years where property values just went through the floor, and people were losing houses and places were going into foreclosure, and what sold for 200,000 in 2007 was suddenly selling for 85,000 this year. That happens, but in general the value of real estate will keep increasing. you
So
know
to tie what I'm trying to point out is that you have all these people that want to conserve the power of their assets or their money, but the dollar keeps decreasing. All paper money
Mhm.
does. And so in order to offset that, they go into these investments. Well, one of the sure things across, time is the real estate thing. So
Mhm.
what has happened is, as opposed to, because they've always done that,
Mhm.
but it's taken an uptick to where places like Miami, they across the board are gobbling
Yeah.
up um, properties in order to do whatever they do. But the point is that by doing so, um, that increases the properties.
Yeah.
The people that lived here generationally before,
Mhm.
their entry into property, starting a new family,
Not
was
happen.
was no, I'm saying years before,
Oh, okay.
was less of a hurdle than it is now, even though they made less. But the factor today nowadays is the fact that these people are coming in that are using this as a way to secure their money into the future. um and so that's kind of the thing that's going on. But anybody that says, okay, fine, like what you were saying, well, we can't make it, so here in a big metropolis, so we can, but we could go somewhere else, then they have to factor in the job situation and this and that. And a
Sure.
lot of people may be willing to do such things, but many others, for any number of reasons, family,
Mhm.
whatever,
Well,
they just won't. And that's how come people just end up. So in a way, it's also turning into a renters um, dystopian thing.
well,
Um,
yeah, and there's a lot of reasons for that. That's multifaceted. But let's look at your family as a example of that. You said yourself your parents left Little Havana and moved out to Sweetwater, which at that time was not quite out in the sticks, but you could see those sticks from
no, it
Sweetwater.
was out in the sticks.
It was out in the sticks. So
Yeah.
they had to move away from the metropolitan area to be able to afford to buy the property that you're living on now and try to have a good, decent life. And that's no different than what's happening now. Now, Miami, where you're at, you're in a strange era at a it's a strange time for that place because you have so many developers coming in and buying up entire city blocks to develop those blocks. So that's going to drive prices up because the minute you eliminate 32 houses, that's 32 families that's got to find another place to live. Well, as they develop that, the property values goes up, the property taxes go up, and people just starting out can't afford to be there. So they're going to have to go further out and further out. And that is the very definition of urban sprawl, where the big city centers are going to grow up big and basically price people out of the area. And they're going to have to go further and further out. Now, you're limited by the Everglades, so you can only go a couple of directions because you can't go west, directly west from where you are. So, how far can they go before they get into the next town? And if that town is going through the same type of boom, they got to go further than that. And that's what I mean when I say some people have to relocate. They're just choiceless about it. They may have to change careers. And it's a no win situation. Now, I don't know what happened there, but I can tell you what happened here locally because I watched it. When the bottom fell out of the real estate market, a few investors took the opportunity to buy these houses that were being foreclosed on and they started renting them out. And as real estate values came back up and slowly got back to where they could turn a decent profit off of selling the home, they did. As a tenant would move out, they'd go in, they'd renovate the place, and they'd put it up for sale. So that took houses out of the rental pool because people were buying these homes. A lot of them were first time buyers, a lot of them were just folks looking to live in a house that they owned rather than paying somebody rent. But they took so many homes out of the rental pool that before the big fires that took out those two towns, according to the county, we had a 4,000 unit shortage, meaning there were 4,000 families looking for a place to rent, and there was no place to rent. So that can happen all over the place. We bought this from the people we were renting it from. They owned it. I mean, she was the original owner of this house. They got married, they lived here, then they bought another place not too far away. They rented that out. They both still worked full-time jobs, but then they got into their 70s and they didn't want to be landlords anymore. Can't blame them. So they offered it to us. I didn't want to buy the place, but we figured we could not live anywhere else cheaper than we're living here. So we bought it. That's the only reason we got a house. So I feel for young couples. I really do because it is hard. And in a lot of areas, I'm just going to say it, it's impossible.
Yeah,
We've heard
Like San Francisco,
San Francisco, New York,
Miami,
Chicago,
Miami.
Miami. If you're a young couple just starting out, forget it.
Yeah,
If
it's not even.
you're lucky to find a place to rent because you're in competition with so many other people wanting to buy a place or even rent a place.
Oh yeah.
And that may mean you have to relocate. It's
Well,
sad, but it is true.
no, my my bringing things to the attention to this is that, well, number one, two things. In 2008, that was a whole different thing that I don't know that had ever happened before. Because in that case, if I recall correctly, there was a law that was done away with that before had certain protections where banks couldn't lend out to certain people. Some they had to show proof, or there was some sort of complication going on that had always been in place, but it was a safeguard so that banks wouldn't loan out everything, and then fail, and this and that. And they were giving loans to everybody and their uncle. And in so doing, people were signing up that couldn't afford the places that they were. Did you go? Am I the one that got cut off? Was it you or me, Mark? Can you guys tell me if it's me or Mark that's off? Can you guys hear me? Mark is gone, but I'm still here. Eloy is on. Mark is off. Okay. Um. Well, Mark is much better at filling in the blanks. Hold on, because that little spinning wheel. Hold on. Well, hell, I can't even. Let me see here. Let's see if he sees it. I just messaged him just to see if he sees it, but he doesn't. Oh, now he's totally gone. Well, heck. Okay. Well, I guess I'll read your messages, and if he's not back in short order, it's on our end. He knows he's trying to fix it. Okay. Okay. Well, that'll work. Dance, Eloy. So, nothing. What we were talking about. I just wanted to say that I don't know. I can't speak about back in the day other than what I have according to what I've. So Mark is making the comparison, saying that this is kind of within the at least what I'm taking away from it. This is kind of within the realm of what's gone on before in the tougher times of the market. Frankie said he told too much about the real estate business. They got him. He told too much about the real estate. He's working on it. He'll keep tap dancing. I was making a point, but I started reading the messages. Now I don't know what Frankie exactly was saying, or if I'm reading something from before. Okay, let me just set my thought. So but my suggestion is that this is a little bit more of a different scenario in terms of the severity of the imbalance of things. Linda said, "Nah, they'd have to get past me first." What? Why am I so bad at reading the messages and getting it in order? Like as far as like how they connect. I don't know what, but I mean, Canada is trying to pass higher capital gains tax. So if you have multiple homes, you get hosed. Mm, yeah. Well, like I was saying, that across time, um, throughout the ages, was jokes. Eloy, the real estate dudes see Frankie's posts. um, Nothing across time. Um, that taxation thing, the extraction of has always been an issue, and like I was saying before, that there's a balance there where yeah, you need society to function, fine, but there's that we need society to function, but then there's the extreme of how much are you going to squeeze that lemon till you dry it out. So there's a balance there, you know. um and so that's just my only real, I guess, my main point, that okay, yeah, well, we do need that road that goes into Lubbock, Texas, and crosses the desert and whatnot, and it needs to be repaired. Okay, maybe they gotta scrape those armadillos off the side. What, okay, I get it, there's expenditures, but what I'm saying is that shouldn't there be I mean, do we want to be abusive? Like, let's not be, you know what I'm saying? So it's the balance is what I'm getting at. um Real estate dudes, he has to reset router. See ya in a minute. Okay. Well, it usually happens to me, so it's okay that it happened. Well, it's not okay, but you get my point. It's usually Mark that has to wait for me, and he does a great job, but I'm here left out. It's like, there's nothing, there's no one for me to argue against. There's nothing to bounce off of. That's how the wagon trains got started. Scraping armadillos off the ground. So, um, it's intense. The whole thing is intense. But I guess I'll say something slightly different. When I'm here observing Miami on my little bus route and whatnot, I there's such dynamic activity on a continual basis with traffic and foot traffic and just everything. It's so continuous. And it was always a big town as far as I remember back in the day. But boy, it's so extreme. There's so much happening, so many people. And even though, like Mark was saying, that oh, I live out, towards the west and at the other extreme, bordering the Everglades, the town has city has wrapped around us, and it's really gotten big. So it's an impressive thing that you don't pay attention to unless you see it from a distance. Oh, he's back. Hey man, let me tell you, I am not used to the shoe on the other foot situation. It was very difficult. You know why it was difficult? Because you
Mhm.
usually, so bouncing off of you or whatever you say, it gives me the entry point to say, oh no, well, I think this or I think that. But once you drop out,
Yeah,
how am I going to argue with myself?
you'll find a way. I do.
I was trying.
Nice day. Might be. You don't know.
Well, I meant arguing the way I would define it, not the
Yeah.
way you're defined. But yeah,
No, just my router decided to do. Show's over. I'm tired, and that was it. So I had to go. But the funny thing was, Linda's internet connection was just fine. Mine took a dump back here. My other computer in the other room, it took a dump. Linda's was the only connection that was still good. So now we'll see if she comes back. So
I think it's, I don't think that the agents of the government want us talking about these things. They're saying these two.
well,
We're gonna take them out one way or the other. We'll start light. We'll
yeah,
start with their routers.
yeah. And Frankie may have something here. He told too much about the real estate business. They got him. Well, you know,
That's
you're
what he
not
was saying, and I
you're
just
not
stole his
far
idea.
from you're not far from it.
So
um,
that's what Frankie was trying to say. I was trying to figure out, and then he was joking, but I
mhm,
was like, how do I connect that? And now
mhm.
I reinvented what he was suggesting, and it took that much time for me to figure it out. Oh, because it's not easy, dude. Once you drop and the conversation stops,
Mhm.
but the comments are there, and then you start looking at the comments to pick out the since the comments are so specific, like they're internally reacting to whatever we're talking about, but you may have already left that little station
Uh-huh.
behind, so you're trying to pace it. It ain't easy.
Well, it I don't know when you're talking about doing it by yourself. I just have fun with it.
Well, you do that all the time because you have
I
your
just
show.
try to have fun with it. My mother used to say, well, you're a blonde. Of course you're attracted to being in front of the camera. But I've always been a ham. It's always been a game of dig me. I'm very comfortable right here in front of this thing with a microphone in my face. I'm very comfortable. Doesn't bother me at all. Some people just can't do it. They just don't like it. You know, they get that deer in the headlights thing and they just freeze up and your brain can't run you know, I get it, but
I've become a little bit more. Um, I don't want to say shy.
mm,
Obviously, we do this all the time, but like, I don't know. I don't want to overdo it, but I feel that as I've aged, there's a sense of a little bit of. So my dad would. I'll say it like this: my dad, in interactions, many times, he was either making a case for something and then he was on fire, or in casual conversations, he could say more, but he you knew that he usually would avoid the saying more,
Yeah,
and just do a quick pleasantry and get it over with. But there was more possible in the interaction, but
yeah,
due to the circuit, I find myself doing that a lot too.
yeah.
And I don't know if that even makes sense, but whatever.
Well,
I don't know.
it. I don't know. I've become more mellow in my old age because
Yeah,
I
Mellow.
used to be the guy myself, but it just isn't. It isn't worth getting all worked up for anymore. It really isn't. And it's kind of a, I don't know, it sends the wrong signal at times. It sends a signal that I don't care. I care very deeply. I just have decided that I'm one person. I can do one thing and one thing only about it. And I'm not going to run around being angry for the rest of my life, because what kind of life is that? So I had to make a huge correction, and I was in my 50s. I had to make a huge correction because I just was not a nice person. I was not pleasant to be around.
But was
Even
it
and
with everything?
uh, in my brain, yes. And I just had to make a major, major correction and get out of my own head and just remember that my opinion matters only to me,
But wait a second. I have, I
and
have
that,
okay, go ahead. I'm
and
sorry.
while I have the right to free speech, I don't have the right to inflict myself on people,
But wait a second.
you know?
You see, this is what is helpful because you
Mm-hmm.
said something that I can react to. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was alone here, I had nothing to react to. I mean, I did have the comments, but I was trying to categorize them in
Mm-hmm.
what context I was trying to. Um, Luckily, Linda said he's working on the router,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that gave me a clue that
Well,
there was a light at the end of
and
the tunnel.
legitimately, this has been an ongoing thing for the past few weeks. I just can't decide on a router. Past few months, who am I kidding? I just can't decide on a router to buy to replace this one. But I need to get a new router.
So
Is
let
what
me
it is.
just push back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
since it doesn't matter. Anything can be pushed back on. But let me say, how sure are you with the statement that you said?
Which one? I made several.
Well, I'm getting to it.
Okay.
I'm being not forcefully what is it, dramatic by pausing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just trying to build it in my head as I
Oh,
say.
okay. All right.
Um, what degree of confidence do you have that your opinion only matters to you?
I can only I can only speak for myself.
That's true. You can only,
Okay.
well, that's not true either. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Go
I
ahead.
can't speak for you. Um, I can only speak for myself. My opinion, if a lot of it depends on presentation, but my opinion is just that, my opinion. I could be wrong on any number of facts that I choose to support that opinion, and I could choose to express that opinion in less than friendly terms. Those are different situations. But at the end of the day, it finally hit me that it just wasn't important
No,
that people
I get.
that I inflict my opinion on people that didn't want to hear it and
Okay,
weren't
but
interested in it.
okay, hold on though. Okay, there's a few parts to that, but the
Hmm.
key, or the one part that I wanted to focus, although you mentioned another one that's an interesting thing too, but the idea that your opinion only matters to you.
Yes, because it's personal. It's my opinion.
Oh, you're saying the things that you have that you don't share.
Sure.
Okay, you're not saying the things that you share So you're saying things that you
Well, if
reserve to
if
yourself.
if if I have an opinion on the greatest rock and roll band of all time, and we're talking in the context of rock and roll bands, and I share that opinion with you, you might find value in it, you might not. You might have a completely different opinion. But that does have value because that's an exchange of ideas because I want to hear why you think so, and hopefully you want to hear why I think so. That's a completely different thing.
You're talking about something that's internal to you that
Mhm.
you don't share.
Well, I'm talking about just about anything because if any topic came up, whether you wanted to hear it or not, I would let you know my opinion on
Okay,
it,
wait.
whether I was welcome to express that opinion or not.
No, no. Okay, yes, okay. But my question is, your statement that saying that your opinion only matters to you.
Hmm.
From my perspective, I don't know. The only way, if you keep it internal where nobody knows it, then I guess. But once you share an opinion,
Hmm.
I don't know that you can affirm that your opinion once stated out loud publicly is not important to other people. You might be surprised or not, depending on the person, that's true.
Hmm.
But what I'm saying is that once you put something out there, it could be rejected, that's true. It could
Hmm.
be looked upon negatively, that's true too. Or it could be thought of as insightful, even insightful in some parts, not insightful in others, maybe conflictive. Yeah. For others, there's a whole host of reasons that or reactions from people that could occur from your a statement of yours coming from inside your head. So I don't know that it would only matter to you, is what I'm saying.
Well, I can only speak for myself, and I can only judge by the reactions I got. But you got to remember,
Oh, you're talking about back then.
yes, but you got to remember, the person I was is not the person you see now.
That's
I was
crazy when you say that stuff.
I was a completely different individual. I was a major jerk.
Yeah, but Mark, I can't. Okay, obviously, I wouldn't know the difference now, but because I only
Yeah.
know you as
Mhm.
you here as we speak for the past whatever years, but it's hard for me to think that you had a totally different personality.
Well, I won't say 100% different. Probably about 80% though,
That's crazy.
because if I knew a person, liked a person, I would joke with you. I was jovial. I got along with my coworkers until we got onto certain topics. And if I got fired up over something, or if something happened that put me in a bad mood, the world knew it. And I went out of my way to make sure the world knew it, like the world owed me something.
Oh, I see.
Because I was very focused on myself. I was very self-centered. And it was drastically important. It was a matter of life and death that you knew that. And I was not afraid or ashamed to tell anybody or anything. And finally figured out that the only person that was serving was my own ego. Me, my own ego. I'm special. Didn't you get the memo? Don't you know who I am? That kind of thing. And finally had to figure out that this is just not worth being pissed off every day about everything, screaming at the television because these idiots didn't know how to do things right,
Yeah.
and just being argumentative about well, not every subject, but many subjects with people I didn't even know, you know? And it just, I had to back up, regroup, and take a real hard look at myself and what it was doing to family relationships, what it was doing to personal relationships, what it was doing to me and what it was doing to the people that I loved. You know, I wouldn't want to hang around with that person. And, I wouldn't, I was never violent. I'm not a violent person. I don't think I have a violent bone in my body, but very opinionated, still am. But I've learned that a great percentage of my opinions are simply that. And that it's at the end of the day, most of it just doesn't matter. I've learned, or I'm still learning every day, what I can control, what I can't control, what's my business, and what's none of my business. And when I sit back and I analyze it, I'm constantly, on a daily basis, amazed at how little of it is my business and how little of it I have any control over. I can't control when that light turns red, so why be pissed off at it? Because all that's doing is making me, put me in a foul mood.
Well, at the
You know,
well,
the guy doing 45 in the fast lane on the freeway didn't time it to where he would get in front of me. Mark's leaving the house. If I go now, I'll be a mile ahead of him when he hits the freeway. That didn't happen. But any kind of a personal slight like that, I saw as a personal slight.
gotcha.
Cut, I cursed every red light. I cursed every don't walk sign when I wanted to hit that button. Come on, what's going on? You know, I was just an angry, pissed off individual
Wow, that's
for
crazy.
no reason. For no reason
You just
other
got
than,
into that cycle.
it was all about me.
Wow, that's crazy, Mark. And what lit up your
I can't point to any one thing. I really can't. It was just an overriding desire to not be the guy people try to avoid anymore. You know, I just,
you just came to that realization?
I was tired of, no, it was, like I said, it wasn't just an instant realization. It was a slow process. And I started to kind of see things and back up and what are you so mad about? What are you really, what are you so mad about? And when I couldn't come up with a good reason, I mean, that doesn't mean that I was, whistling zippity doo dah or anything, but I just kind of learned how to calm down, knock it off, mellow out, and just realize we're all just trying to get along in life, putting one foot in front of the other. And I don't know this guy's story, so why am I pissed off at him? He didn't do anything to me.
Yeah, and some people you make cross paths with while you're in a certain mood,
Mm-hmm.
they may be in a certain mood, and that's a cocktail
Yeah.
for a disaster. Even things like where what I'm getting at is that that person otherwise might be quite the normal, average, get along. You know what I'm saying? That whole combination could be
Well,
volatile at any given moment.
I'll give you a situation that I saw. And this is one of the things that made me back up and regroup a little bit. I watched a woman, it was a very light rain, pulled into a convenience store that had gas pumps out front. And rather than pull up and park in front of the store, hop out of her car and jog 3 steps through the rain, she pulled up in front of a gas pump and parked in front of the gas pump and ran inside. Never got gas. Went in and grabbed her Pepsi or whatever it was she was after, and then went back out. But she wanted to be under the cover. She didn't want to be out in the parking lot. The guy I was would have had words with her in the store. I would maybe not directly address her, but I'd have told the clerk in a loud and thunderous aerosol voice all about the selfish bimbo parked out there by the pump that isn't even getting gas.
You would you
I,
would
oh yeah,
initiate.
and I didn't care. I really didn't care. Go
So
ahead,
so
say
so
something.
so,
I challenge you.
so you were grease lightning, huh?
Oh yeah, didn't take much to set me off either.
Holy crap, Mark.
Yeah,
That's I don't perceive you in that
and
area at all.
but it was, and I'm right behind her. Um, but I pulled up and I parked out in the parking lot, and I didn't say anything. I watched. Inside, I was seething.
Well, but I will.
But then I thought, it's not like there's a line of people wanting to get gas. She's not taking a space that somebody else was going to use. She didn't want to get soaking wet. I think it was kind of goofy because now instead of jogging 3 steps to get into the store, she had to run 50 feet. But, okay, whatever. But then I thought, what business is it of mine? She's not obstructing anybody. She's not taking anything from anybody else. Who am I to say that she's wrong for doing what she's doing?
So I will
You
say,
know?
well, with all that said, that's incredible. I
And
will.
I don't know how we got on this, but what the hell?
No, it's an incredible thing. It's insightful as hell. Okay, so just to rummage through that,
Mhm.
the things that pop into my head without exacerbating, or saying, oh well, that was just fine to go and say something like that but without saying that. But still, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater
Mhm.
in this way. It's, how can I say, the reaction bit that you were talking about. I understand
Mhm.
correcting for, and of course, over getting angry. Like, I'll get upset at things like, whatever, any category, because I'll see the error in
Mhm.
the situation. Um, but what I'm getting at is that one thing is the reaction bit, and the other part is recognizing that, oh yeah, that's an error.
Mhm.
In other words, you can be justified in your calculation that, hey, that's an error.
Mhm.
It's just the reaction bit that you're saying that you nudged.
Yeah. I
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Because that's one of the few things that I can control. I can't control the situation. All I can do is control my reaction
And you
to it.
can't avoid calculations in your head that
Well,
show
sure.
you what's going on.
They still happen. I mean, Linda and I'll get in the car after we're done grocery shopping or whatever, talking about some piece of human cholesterol clogging the artery that is the bread aisle. But it's done in such a way to where I'm not griping at her, she's not griping at me. There's no anger, there's no raising of voices. But that, man, some people just can't seem to get over themselves and they got to be the center of everything, to include the bread aisle, something like that, and then it's done.
Right. Okay, I get that. I get that.
You
Okay,
know, um,
there's go ahead.
Jim's got a good point here. This is a good one. I used to get frustrated following farm equipment on rural roads until I realized my belly was full. That's a good outlook, man. Because I mean, that's one part of it. That was one of the things that I would get cheesed off about too. But then again, he's just doing his job. If that tractor was capable of doing 60 down the highway, he'd do it. He's not doing 35 because he wants to, you know. So if it inconveniences me for 30 seconds while I wait for the traffic to clear so I can pass him, big deal. There's more important things to get upset about in life.
Yeah. Oh, so, well, obviously I understand. So, truth be told, there's really those two choices. Either you involve yourself in somebody else's, what you perceive as a stupid or irrational
Mm-hmm.
behavior, or you don't.
Well,
There's those two options, and there's always a something in the middle. But
mm-hmm.
I'm saying is that you have those options, and then there's the aggravation of spotting um, errors
Mm-hmm.
around you, mishaps, irregularities that make no rational sense,
Yeah.
and so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see those a lot too in
Mm-hmm.
whatever topic. Now there is the mirror situation. So I
Mm-hmm.
I come out the gates understanding that I'm perfectly imperfect. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not even saying that as, I'm just saying that I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that the faults that I have, maybe I say something incorrect,
Mhm.
um, or I come to a conclusion that's not just a bunch of things that might be. Um, I'm not perfect, and neither are other
Yeah,
people.
nobody is. Yeah.
Right. So I recognize that, but what I'm trying to get at is that within that, depending on the category, you might spot things that are like really screwed. And yes, do you if you were to confront me with something,
Mhm.
I'm gonna throw it at me that I'm in that you see that I'm in error in, or there's an option that I'm not um pro- that I haven't considered,
Mhm.
and you bring it to me, and you say, "Hey, Eloy, X, Y, and Z,"
Mhm.
and we do that a lot in different topics and stuff.
Yeah, we do.
But this format is made for us to go back and forth and converse over one. I mean, the other night we were talking about where the name Penguin came from. I mean, the whole thing, but
Yeah.
it was beneficial.
Mhm.
But there was a back and forth. We were trying to figure out. I had
Mhm.
questions, you had questions, but we both went and we figured. And I thought that even though it's just a Penguins conversation, the principle of what we did
Uh-huh.
was explore,
Yeah.
which is good. So, but what if you come to me and I don't like the way you're setting up?
A, a presentation style is everything.
But here's another one. So there's that, the
Mhm.
presentation style. But here's the other one. What if presentation style aside, the actual information is so for whatever reason unacceptable to me, or not because it's wrong, but like let's say I'm just not like I'm not ready to process something that'll switch a paradigm in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
And then now we have another problem because now you're bringing me something that's true,
Mhm.
but I'm just not wanting to frickin' process it because
Well,
what by me accepting the thing you're delivering
kind of
means
blows your world up. Yeah.
exactly. So now we have this issue. So, but okay, so that scenario happens all the time in many topics for many people.
Sure.
Okay, yes, that kind of a scenario is very difficult because you don't know where and when you're pushing a button that's going to explode somebody's reality.
Yeah.
But I consciously know that when confronted with something, and I have been in many cases, when
Sure.
confronted with something that really shakes my foundations, um, it may take a long time for me to
Yeah.
accept it, or it may take a short while, or
Yeah.
I'll concede. So, but I'm aware that there's something going on where I'm not aware of everything. So I'll give you the last. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, let me just ask you this about that. Let me delve a little bit deeper into that. Do you find yourself investigating on your own?
Like just broadly
For
speaking.
instance, the penguin thing. It's just
Oh
that
yeah.
you could accept it at face value and move on. Okay, fine. Wait a minute. Let's look into that.
If
You
I were
find
alone,
yourself kind of investigating things on your own and going, God, son of a bitch, he's right. That is that,
yeah, yeah.
whatever.
If you say if you in a conversation here on one of our many shows, if you say something that leaves me with a question mark, I'm
Mhm.
not thinking, oh well, he's just playing out wrong. I'm saying, well, wait a second, is that there's a difference between oh well, that's plain wrong. I can't accept that,
Mhm.
which I have done in the past, but I will continue. So yes, I will. Why? Because it's difficult. Sometimes you want to be, like no,
Mhm.
but inevitably I review
Mhm.
because why do I want to stand on something that's not
Mhm.
true?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there 100%. There's nothing worse than doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on something because it meets your preconceived notion,
Yeah.
and then finding out that that whole line of thought was just factually incorrect. You
Well,
know.
I'll give you a perfect odd example
Hmm.
that crosses a lot of borders or a lot of um, different things.
Hmm.
Any number of episodes ago, I forget what the topic was now. I'm sure it's going to come to me, but I
Hmm.
remember your answer more than what the hell the thing was about. Oh, I think it was about aliens or something.
Hmm.
And the reason I remembered it is because I pictured, for some reason in my mind, I just pictured you in your home because of the scenario that we played out, and
Hmm.
so I've connected you sitting there in your home. I mean, just in my imagination, and then
Uh-huh.
you saying what you were saying. So in my mind, I have this image of this conversation, and the conversation was that something something aliens, and wouldn't that rock your world? Um, and you said something to the effect of, well, what difference is it going to make? I have to continue to go to the groceries. I have to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh no, it was the flat Earth thing. And my
Oh,
opinion was, okay, let's just say that they're 100% correct, and it
right.
turns out that we were wrong. The Earth is flat.
That's true.
Does it really change anything?
Yeah, and then
Because
I
we still got to get up and go to work. We're still gonna have,
right, and I was arguing that
mhm,
yes, because it would be a huge paradigm shift. This is snap, but
right.
you said I still got to go. You know, get fed.
Hmm.
Get washed. I still got to go. I don't know, to the lumber yard. I still have to X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
Okay, and I so okay, let's because if anybody wants to search through. So but here's the thing with that,
Hmm.
I didn't like your answer.
I know you didn't,
No, but
and
you know
that's
what?
one of the reasons I stuck to it.
Well, but and here's the thing though, at the time I didn't like your answer. And the reason I didn't like your answer was because, well, wait a second, Mark. It's like, and I don't know how many different options I gave you. Like I tried to figure a way to
We
sort of,
spent a good 45 minutes on it, but yeah.
yeah, well, because I want, but in any event, how couldn't Mark not realize that, hell, now there's this new reality, and that's going to affect the world, this and that. But your baseline assertion, which I didn't like, was true.
Mhm.
It's still true. Um, but the two things can be true at the same time. There's a new paradigm, but regardless, which is saying the same thing, but regardless, human beings, whatever
Mhm.
keeps a human being alive and happy and comfy when sleep, all the things that a human being still has to occur.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what you were getting at. And
Mhm.
and so I found it useful, and so I didn't reject that. Eventually I
Mhm.
said, well, and I eventually I said, you know what, that's completely solid, it's true. So regardless,
Well, even if you want to get into a technical sense, okay, we discovered that we've been wrong for centuries and the earth really is flat. I'm going to go back to that for just a minute.
mhm,
The sun's still going to rise and it's still going to set. Compasses are still going to work. Airplanes aren't going to stop dropping out of the sky. There may be some dynamic shifts in certain areas, in certain things, but all in all, life is going to continue on like it did before we knew that information.
right, the necessities need to continue because humans need what they need.
And nothing in nature has changed.
Right, it's just a new information that we've
Right.
gained.
We've got to now look at it through different eyes. And
Okay,
so, in that regard, it is earth shattering. In that regard, it is big news. But when it comes to normal day to day life, which I have to live because that's all I got, it doesn't change the way I'm going to do anything.
and so that holds true at
Yeah.
the most baseline level, because it has to be true.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because we have to get on with it, let's say. Okay. Well, um so I just wanted to use that example as
Sure.
something that, I had to, I mean, I knew we had to eat,
Sure.
pee, and this and that, but I
Yeah.
was focused on one thing, and you
Mhm.
were saying this other thing, which ties in a sense
Yeah.
to whatever scenario occurs, such
Mhm.
as we were talking about, like expenses of eggs or whatever the
Yeah.
heck. Yes, that's all true now in our reality now,
Sure.
but we still have to get on with it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
and so
and you have two options, and that is to eat eggs and pay it, or not eat eggs and don't pay it,
right,
or put eggs on the premium list and have them once a month.
right. So in the context of bitching and complaining about things like that,
Mhm.
um, it is true also that it's very human for there to be any degree of this expression, outward expression.
Yeah.
That bit can be benign or it can
Mhm.
be extreme, kind of like what you were expressing earlier.
Yeah.
But I don't think, maybe shy of what you were explaining that you made corrections for,
Mhm.
I think it's quite healthy to have interactions that deal with issues, but sometimes a person will,
I will still discuss issues. I mean, we do it all the time. You and I do it all the time.
yeah, we do it here.
But I have learned. But let me put it to you this way. Let me just ask you, if if half of the discussions you and I had ended up with me yelling at you, would you want to continue those discussions? Probably not. You know,
Right.
and or so it just doesn't do anybody any good to get all worked up over stuff like that, because what happens is somebody's going to take it personal, or both are going to take it personal. I've seen friendships end. I have ended friendships. I have been disassociated with family members. I have I've run the whole gamut of a whole bunch of things just because I was pretty much an unpleasant person to be around. And you asked me about, well, what caused this shift? What caused you to look at? And I said that there isn't any one thing that happened, but I can tell you one of the things that did happen that kind of left a lasting impression on me. Um, there was I'm going to call him a kid. He was probably 19, 18 years old, working in a grocery store. He was a courtesy clerk, bagging groceries. And he was in a wheelchair. And he would pull out the little drawer and he'd bring out the sacks and he'd start bagging groceries and everything. And I had two bags. And when we were finished, he looked at me and he said, "You need help out with this?" And I said, "No, thank you. I appreciate it." And that struck me instantly when he said it. I tried like hell not to react. But as I'm walking out to the car, I'm thinking, what the hell do I have to complain about? Here's a kid in a wheelchair asking me, and I'm 40 something, asking me, do I need help carrying groceries out to the car? I'm an able bodied person. What the hell do I have to complain about?
Yeah.
And that was one of those things that happened in that process. And I finally kind of put two and two together in my brain. The next time he asked me that, can I help you out with that? I said, yeah, come on. And he kind of looked at me funny.
He said, "Oh
And
crap."
I had one bag, he had the other bag, and we got out the door. And I said, you look like you needed a break and needed to get out of the store for a minute. And he got a big grin on his face and he looked up at me and he goes, thank you for that. And we just kind of strolled on out and I grabbed the other bag of groceries from him, thank you for that. And put him in the back seat of the car, and off I went. But when you have somebody in the wheelchair asking you if you need help,
That's a big, yeah,
what the hell do you have to complain about? You know?
yeah.
And exactly, Frankie. Exactly, Frankie. He got a break from being in the store. I didn't realize that that's what it was at. That's part of what he was doing, was trying to get out of that damn place. You know, for just a minute or two. Give me a change of scenery, get outside, get some fresh air. And that kind of clicked on me, because I thought about that for a couple of weeks. You know, that really hit home with me about, well, what the hell have I got to complain about? But
Yeah. Yeah. There's a fine line, just going back to the confrontation bit. There's a fine line between how like myself, with this recent update with the estimates for my ancestry and this and that,
Mhm.
where I told you that, oh, well, now, and people are complaining, and discussions we have in the group. The group is catered to the topic so that people can put out
Sure.
their ideas. But not everybody has the sufficient amount of tact
Yeah.
to express their discontent
Yeah.
over something you've written,
Mm-hmm.
and above that, to properly explain without, like, the extra toppings, but to hone in and say, hey, X, Y, and Z is why I think your thoughts are crap.
Yeah.
That would then allow me to make corrections or
Well,
explain where the error is. But people don't all
nope.
work at the same.
It's an
Um,
emotional reaction.
that's
It's
it.
it's an emotional reaction. How dare you say yada yada? Eh, I don't have any room for
Okay, so that's it.
earthquake. Just strikes Miami.
Yeah, I thumbed it. Um, that's just it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I
in
don't have time
conclusion,
for those kind of peoples.
well, but here's the thing. But when one has
Mm-hmm.
doubts
Mm-hmm.
or is interested in a subject, you join a group so you can discuss said subject. I mean, it could be CNC, woodworking in
Right.
general,
Right.
um, and so you're there in order to
But
interact over the subject. But then there's that fine line. Go ahead.
what was the motivation to join such a group? Because a large percentage of these people, and this is across any group, are just looking for verification of their own preconceived notions. They're looking for I'm getting the wrong word here. They're validation. They're looking for validation.
Yeah.
And when somebody challenges some, you don't go in and post in those groups. I'm asking. You don't go in and post in those groups to troll. You don't go in and post things to stir up conflict, right? That comes to you when somebody has a emotional reaction to something you've said. Doesn't matter how many facts you have to back it up.
Yep. That's what's been
And
happening
it's
to
an
me.
emotional reaction. And those people I have no time for.
I
I have
had
no
to
time for. I don't even acknowledge that they commented.
I had to block a dude that he takes what I say, repeats it, and then claims what I said as his to prove me wrong. In
Yeah.
other words, he's using my same descriptor
Mm-hmm.
of whatever the subject is. It's happened like 3 4 times with the guy
Mm-hmm.
across, a year and some change. And once he did it this last time, he literally, and he added, no, because you people from America, and that's a little bit of a
Right there.
dig.
That's the big flag right there.
He
You're
said
one of those.
you people from America have these preconceived ideas of X, Y, and Z. And then he went on to he used that as an opener, and then he went on to explain the same crap that I explained,
Just
but
say
he took
exactly what you said.
right, and so he took it as if he was telling me what's what. And I gave him an opportunity. I said, "Listen, did you just repeated what I said?" And then I asked him a question, and he just left it like that, so that other people. This is my I'm stretching it now, but I'm assuming this. I don't know if it's true, but it seems like it's a potential, so that other people just read his comment, right?
Mhm.
They could read mine, but they read his comment, and then that's what they take away. In other words, it's an ego thing,
Sure.
based on ego,
Yeah.
and I
It's
understand ego gets,
100% emotional. Yeah, absolutely.
but
Yeah.
the topic, the principles laid out in the topic, is what's important to me.
Well, but he's not
This,
interested in that because you were not validating his reality.
yeah, his reality of stealing what I was saying,
Hmm.
which is not mine. It's what the freaking document, anyways. Whatever. The point is that.
Yeah.
But those groups are meant for you to like
Well,
put out your thoughts and this and that. But it can get even that under
yeah.
that cat can get testy.
And I don't even join those groups for reasons much like that because it doesn't do me any good to get fired up over things like that, you know?
Second point though, that's okay. So I get that,
Hmm.
but here's my issue with that.
Hmm.
If I
Hmm.
do not bounce, it's kind of like when you dropped out.
Hmm.
Once you dropped out, my ideas, yeah, I could sit here and contemplate and lay things out, and I do, obviously, but like with whatever topic at home. But if I don't then go and express my thoughts to you,
Hmm.
even though you may present obstacles to me according to what your brain,
Hmm.
processes from what I'm saying, if I don't have that bounce back feedback
Uh-huh.
to double check my work,
Yeah.
even even if it turns out that, let's say, I'm right or that I'm wrong, whatever the case may be, or that I have to think about it,
Yeah.
it's still a benefit to me that I had a confrontation or an exchange, um, even if at the moment I wasn't satisfied with what you were
Yeah.
expressing.
I get you.
Right. So there's that. Where else are you going to find that?
Yeah. I mean, well, there are, I don't pursue certain groups because I know that that's what I'm going to face there.
Yeah.
And there are other outlets, you know, there
Yeah.
are other outlets to do things like that. So, and those are the ones that I search out. I'm, there are certain things that I just try to, I kind of go out of my way to avoid. And one of them is confrontation simply because I'm not that guy anymore. I was the first person to confront because in order to confront, and I still firmly believe words mean things.
Yeah.
A confrontation indicates right off the bat a disagreement. Somebody's right, somebody's wrong, and we're going to have a discussion about it. Well, who the hell am I to decide who's right, who's wrong? I may think your facts don't add up, the research doesn't back you up on that. But looking at this person's track record specifically, is there anything that I'm going to say that's going to change his mind because he knows all this information? We've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
No, I'm beating my head against the wall.
And it's available independent
Yeah,
of
and it's
myself and the
right
person.
there in front of you.
Right. It's
You have the
independent.
you
It's
have the
independent
world
of
at your
both.
fingertips.
Exactly. We both have the internet.
Uh huh.
Yes.
Is
Exactly.
there anything I'm going to say that's going to change that? Probably not, because your mind is made up. So I'm not going to confuse you with the facts. Have a nice day, brother.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Yeah. So I have to
Some
be more
people want
interested.
to argue just for the purpose of arguing. I had an aunt like that. She was not happy if there wasn't any drama. So she would start an argument just so there would be drama. She would necessarily not always partake of the argument and participate, but if she could get two people in the family fighting with each other, she was happy.
One time, and this is an odd thing, but I was at City Hall,
Mhm.
and I forget what the topic issue at the time was. I think it was over parking spaces and the city and this and that and people coming in and this and that. And the lawyer, the attorney for the city, was up at the steps, and I was there, and I turned to him. Oh, you're the and we started talking, and then I explained the issue. Um, and he thought I was coming at him, and he said, "No, because you don't understand." He started arguing in front of me, like that's what he was meant to do in
Mhm.
life. And I said, "Dude, I agree with you." And then and he stopped. He says, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Some
So
people can't take yes for an answer.
he, well, so he preemptively began this whole thing to create obstacles. He didn't
uh,
listen to what I was saying, and he
mhm,
just went with it. And
mhm,
I was watching the spectacle unfold in front of me, and I was amazed.
mhm.
And it says a lot about human beings. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
human beings are complicated like that.
yeah, we are. And
Yeah,
if they feel like they're being put on the defensive, they're going to fight back. I mean, you know, you can't be a doormat. You can't let people walk all over you. So you have to stand up for what's right. You
well, you
have to
do.
stand up for your convictions and you have to stand up for yourself. But at the end of the day, is the argument worth having? Is that the hill you want to die on? Is that really, really all that important? You know,
I mean, only it
it depends
depends.
on what's being discussed. I get
Right.
it. But, again, some people just want to argue for the virtue of arguing.
If people can stick to, but then again, this is my preference, but I think it's the just thing. If you stick to the principles of the topic
Mhm.
and the inconsistencies that may pop up between the two people discussing, or three or whatever, um and the focus is on the topic as opposed to the personal,
Mhm.
then
Well,
I find that's fine. But inevitably, what ends up happening is that one person or
mhm.
both, um, the ego starts stirring.
Yeah.
Well, you're not getting it and stuff, and that's human too. But there's a fine line. There's a there's an extreme
Mhm.
that once you align, that if you cross, now you're heading into like just sheer
Yeah.
extremism, and so
Yeah.
that's not healthy. But I
Well,
think that contention,
mhm.
if you stick to the facts of the issue, I think that's fine.
Yeah, you can disagree. I mean, we're going to disagree on any number of things. White bread or wheat, paper or plastic. I mean, there's a million things to disagree over, but at the end of the day, how important are those things? That was my issue with this selfish self-centeredness is basically all I can say about it is was you weren't doing it right the way I thought it should be done. Doesn't matter you've been doing it for 50 years. I didn't think you were doing it right. And it was really important that you knew that. I didn't have any solutions. I just knew what should have been done, you know, or so I thought, you
Yeah,
know.
that's I mean,
So, it was a massive case of get over yourself. Most of everybody else already is. So, come join our reindeer games. And I'm a lot happier. I really am. It's not a case of ignorance is bliss because I do stay up on most of what's going on in the world, but I don't sweat the small stuff, you know, because at the end of the day, most of the things that people want to argue about really have no bearing on how I live my life, anyhow,
right.
or they don't decide my happiness. And
which goes back to the flat Earth, and you just got that thing that at the end of the day you just have to
Yeah,
get on with it.
now there are some things that would be earth shaking, like if they discovered tomorrow that 1 plus 1 does not equal 2. Well, we're here in the 21st century, we got a lot riding on the fact that 1 plus 1 equals 2. So now they discover no, it doesn't equal 2, it equals 1.875. Now what do we do? Burn everything and start over, because stuff's going to start falling apart and somebody's going to get hurt.
You know
You know,
what?
that's earth shaking.
You say that. I don't know where you that example came from, but just I don't even know if it's just recently,
Mhm.
but that was argued.
Yeah.
The 1 plus 1 not
I'll
equaling
have
two.
to go find who it was. I saw this on a panel show, a panel discussion, and I'll have to go back and find it and find out who it was. He went through this long mathematical equation that proved 1 plus 1 equals 2. And I
That
can't
prove that
remember
what?
his name. He was a mathematician, and he went through this long equation, um, that proved 1 plus 1 equals 2. And this was in the 20th century. I want to say it was the 1940s or 50s, but I don't remember
Oh, I'm sorry.
exactly.
The guy that I'm talking about said that something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, that 1 times 0
Mm-hmm.
is 1. That
Mm-hmm.
1 times 1 is 2.
How do you figure?
I don't figure he said that.
Mm-hmm.
The guy is an actor, singer, and apparently,
There's your problem.
well, no, but and apparently a genius of some sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Although that doesn't sound like genius because we know that that's not how multiplication works. And
Mm-hmm.
he went on the Joe Rogan show with a actual physicist guy that's like a scholarly guy to talk about his ideas and stuff. Well, it ends up it's over the top, but it ends up that he invented these um what do you call that? What's that science where they measure do shapes?
Oh, geometry.
He did some geometry stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This guy that's not an official scientist, he just does that, and
Okay.
he's become like super. Well, he invented this geometry
Mm-hmm.
that had never been seen before. They say,
Mm-hmm.
and he's implemented it in. It's the same guy with the timetables,
Mm-hmm.
and he implemented it in a drone
Mm-hmm.
where the drone can maneuver
Mm-hmm.
in any direction due to the way it's
Mm-hmm.
composed. And the physicist guy that came on to challenge this guy,
Mm-hmm.
he came on to tell him, I'm just basically rounding up what he said, that he said, dude, all your other crazy stuff, because he has a bunch of crazy things that he
Mm-hmm.
says. He's not trained, but he
Yeah.
did do this cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm telling you, drop all the nonsense, and this one thing that works, this
Mm-hmm.
drone, stick to that.
Focus on
All
that. Yeah.
He said, because all that other stuff, I'm telling you, you don't have the training, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the stuff you're saying is beyond discussed.
Mm-hmm.
This thing you did here, because you're naturally a bright person, that came out of your curiosity, but all that other stuff is just
Stuff.
it. Right. So it was an interesting conversation because the guy gets into conspiracy theories and this and that. But anyways, long story short, it was interesting because here you have somebody that has a bunch of weird ideas, but one of them was like it
Well,
functions.
even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, that just because somebody might have some wild, outlandish thoughts doesn't mean that they can't, that one of them isn't true. Doesn't mean one of them won't work. You
Exactly.
know, Uh, You can and
Exactly.
that is basically the story of success. You can fail repeatedly, but when you hit that one that works, you're on your way.
And the guy's naturally brilliant, according to, well, he created this thing.
Well,
Well, you're saying it was just
well, no, I'm saying that there are brilliant people that don't have sense to pour water out of a boot before they put it on. So, it just depends. Brilliance is can be sometimes very specific. I mean, I knew a guy in the army who did calculus for fun. That was recreation to him. You give him a problem to figure out with calculus or trigonometry, and he was in his element. And the dude was smarter than a whip. But I mean, you couldn't get him to close a door.
yeah, but okay. So, but I don't know that you can find many people that are good across the board. I mean,
Mhm,
one of the things they say is that if you're a person that's intelligent,
mhm.
and that's a sliding scale to whatever degree, from more to less in whatever,
Sure.
they say that if you're good in one area, you're good in multiple areas because it's based on this natural,
Mm,
intelligence.
yeah.
That's actually a thing that they say that if you show accomplishment in one area, but that doesn't mean in all areas.
Right.
So it's very difficult. I would assume. I don't know. It would likely be difficult to find someone that covers all ranges of subjects in order to qualify that as brilliant, which it would be because you have all
Well,
these ranges. But most people, it doesn't seem. I don't know most people, so I don't know. But
well,
it doesn't seem that they would cover this huge range of, like, of different categories and do them well.
it depends on what it is. The French have a the French have a term for it. They call it violon d'angre, and there was a painter, an artist named Angre, and he was one of the masters. I mean, a brilliant artist, and he was known for that. But what most people didn't know was he was also an absolutely brilliant musician, specifically the violin. And that's where that came from. Anger's violin. His last name was Anger. In that you have a person who is known at being at the top of his game in one discipline, but could be equally at top
Yeah,
of his game in something completely different.
yeah,
And there are some people that have it, some people that don't. Um, there are countless actors, for instance, who are also very accomplished musicians. Some
yeah,
of them are dynamite singers that you would not believe the voice that comes out of these people.
yeah,
And but you also have folks who are absolutely brilliant when it comes to science or chemistry that are completely well, Nick Offerman. Look at Nick Offerman. I mean, a
yeah,
master woodworker and a pretty damn good actor at the same time. But you ask him what he loves, he'll tell you he does the acting thing to pay the bills. His passion is the woodworking, and he'd rather spend a a bad day in his shop than a great day on the set. He just does that to pay the bills. You
yeah.
know.
The point, the broad point is that if you show, talent in one area,
Mhm.
it's likely that there's multiple areas that you can service.
Yeah.
You I mean, I'm assuming there's one trick ponies out there, and we don't know whether that's because of their preference or
Mhm.
their exposure. But what I'm getting at is that the suggestion is, I mean, there's plenty out there to read on the subject,
Sure.
but that you would be good in a vast area of subjects, not just one, if you have this certain brilliance, to
Yeah.
whatever degree. But is it properly measured? It's not properly measured. I'm just saying that,
And and many people never discover what that other thing is. If you have a doctor who is, for instance, a brilliant surgeon, He just might be someone who, given the proper nudge forward, put him in a research lab, he could cure a disease. But he just never went in that direction.
Yeah, we can't cover as
Right.
human beings as because I can think of a lot of things that are cool
Mhm.
that oh I'd love to do that because it's cool, but when you
Yeah.
think of all the available things that you see on YouTube and you're like oh man that's so cool I would like to
Yeah.
um you
Oh,
only have
I got
enough.
a list 10 miles long. Yeah. I
Yeah,
know.
we only have enough,
Hmm.
like a certain amount of, and then there's whatever obstacles and whatnot, and they can be overcome. But we only
Well,
have set amount of things that are available to us.
I'm
To
going to
go.
say something that people might take the exception to, and then we got to think about landing the plane.
Okay.
Um, but I firmly believe that the biggest obstacle most people are going to face in life is going to be themselves.
Yeah.
Because I can come up with a million reasons not to do something.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's very easy to find roadblocks that you think are there that are not. And it's real easy to convince yourself not even to try. I firmly believe that most of the people who don't succeed because they didn't try, or they didn't try the right thing. They haven't found they haven't found their they haven't found the spot, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. A perfect. I guess the last thing I'll say, a perfect example of that you're saying, kind of more or less, is that Miami in the late '80s into the '90s.
Mhm.
I was friends with a lot of them. Were musicians,
Mhm.
and I'm telling you from my vantage point, looking at it, there was zero reason that many of these bands could not have easily gotten
Mhm.
into the mainstream. And they were just local Miami kids playing different variety of bands and such. But that didn't happen. And I was part of that world. Um, but I went in a totally different direction because I got into the blues and nobody wanted the blues. It
Yeah.
was like it's like no man, it's grunge man. Or at worst heavy metal that was coming out of fashion because the grunge was taken. But the point is
Blues, you
that
don't have either one of them, but so okay.
well, I mean, it's and it's kids. But
Mhm.
the point is that there was all this potential,
Mhm.
and there's no reason other than what you're saying that one gets it in their head
Mhm.
and the amount of effort put in to said
Mhm.
project or whatnot. Now, it doesn't mean that every time you're going to get a record
No.
contract with EMI Records and stuff, but that's not the point. The
No.
point is that there's potential, but then there's the
Right.
doing and the
Yeah.
believing in yourself as opposed to being
Mhm.
your own worst enemy,
Yeah. Your own biggest roadblock.
your own biggest roadblock. I believed back then, and
Mhm.
I don't know what but I believe that these people, many of them, could have formed savage, badass,
Mhm.
but at some point, it just was what it was. But they had this talent to do so.
Well,
Um, but there was other factors involved. There were other factors involved. So
you get a bunch of talented people together, egos are going to clash. And I mean, we hear that all the time in the music industry. If you look at some of the bands you enjoyed growing up, egos got in the way and they ended up breaking up, you know?
yeah, I see no difference
Mm-hmm.
at the base level of well, I was going to use Led Zeppelin as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me just wipe the slate clean. Led Zeppelin is unparalleled, exceptionally,
Mm-hmm.
insanely, savagely talented,
Mm-hmm.
skilled. It's just out of this world.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are above
Mm-hmm.
the fray. And how do you know that? You know that by what they produced.
Yeah. Their work stands by itself. That's the only thing they have to prove.
It's there.
Yeah.
But what I'm suggesting is that said, which
Mm-hmm.
cannot be denied in my opinion, if I looked at these local musicians, I did not see beyond the fact that Led Zeppelin is in crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's but that I did not see that these people here could not as easily, maybe not at Led Zeppelin level, but gone in the direction of up
Yeah.
just by the things that they were playing. I could
Well,
see and I believe that they had the, but it didn't. You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. And not only that, but you know, as a musician yourself, that the more you do something, the better you get.
Yeah.
And maybe they weren't ready at the time, but that's not to say they wouldn't have been ready in another 6 months or another year or another 18 months. You know,
Yeah.
very, very, very few big names got there on their first attempt. That's a miracle story. And, you know, entertainment industry is full of miracle stories, but those are the exceptions and not the rule.
Yeah. Um.
You know,
Anyways, last thing I'll say. I know this is I know we got to go, but this is a last little side thing I just wanted to share with you. If you recall, a few weeks ago I mentioned that there's this VR where you get in and you're inside an arcade.
yeah,
Okay, and I don't know if you ever were curious enough to follow up on it.
I didn't follow up on it. No, I should have, but I didn't follow up on it.
It was just a cool thing. I mean, it's cool to see
Mhm.
just the vibe that one gets looking at some of these.
Mhm.
But I ran into another one that instead of an arcade, they recreate an '80s bedroom, and it looks like you're in the with the carpet. I mean, the whole nine
Mhm.
yards, and it has TVs and drawers and this and that, and a window, and
Mhm.
you can change the cycle of the day night.
Mhm.
Um, and this and that. You can put up posters and this. You're recreating like a room of your own.
Mhm.
It could be Metallica posters, whatever you want. But the TVs you could turn on
Mhm.
and watch TV.
Yeah.
And you're watching it as if you were sitting in it's like one of these things. And they could play video games on it as you did when you were and they show you how that's done and it's insanity, dude.
Yeah.
Cause and the guy said, man, I feel like I was back in the day. I feel like I'm in my room.
Mhm.
Um as I would have been. And I just thought of that, man, how badass is so yeah.
Nostalgia powers a lot of things. A
Yeah.
lot of things.
Yeah. So in any event, any final words before we take off?
Um, be yourself, but also be the kind of person that you'd like to hang out with.
All right. Very good.
If you don't think you would like to hang out with you, think about it.
That's a tough one. I
Yeah.
had to think. It just popped in. Would I want to hang out with myself? Um, I'm fairly serious when it comes to my. I don't even know how to perceive that. That's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
That's a good question to ask.
Would I want to hang out with me? Think about it. Would I want to hang out with me?
I mean, I have no choice but to hang with me, as
You
as
have
it's
lots of
been.
choices. You have lots of choices.
No, I'm saying I am me, so I have no choice. But like, let's say if I were another person, um, how would I perceive that? That's a good one. I'm gonna let that roll in my. That might be very helpful. Chances are. Um, we'll leave it at that then. Okay, so we go live every Tuesday. Today is Thursday. I know that sounds contradictory, but there's a reason for it because we weren't here on Tuesday.
Roll
Um,
with it.
yeah. So we go live 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here on the Trampled Underfoot podcast show on YouTube. We have a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com, with past episodes on there. You can check those out, and a Facebook page as well, same name. And we're sponsored by.
Boy, you're making me push buttons real fast here, but
Did I
that's
say
all
that?
right. I'll get it figured out. There's the right button. All right. See, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Do I have to say it? Do I need to say it? This is episode 280, 289. Oh,
That's crazy.
get over to Harneo Media, harneomedia.com. That is the answer. Doesn't matter what the question is. That is the answer. You want a website. You know you're thinking about a website. Even if you already have a website, how good is that website? Do you have problems you can't fix? Does it look like an absolute mess? Head on over there to harneomedia.com. Talk to Steve. Steve's a good guy. You know him, you love him, you see him in here all the time. And no, he doesn't like to be on camera. But other than that, he's a good guy. He's very, very competitively priced. He gives you 100% personalized service. And with Harneo Media, you get performance. You don't get excuses. So do yourself a favor. Even if you already have a website, get over to harneomedia.com, HARNEAL, media.com, sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com.
All right. Well, we did it. They said it couldn't be done, but um, we did. Guys, enjoy the rest of your week. Well, enjoy tomorrow and the weekend, and we'll catch you here next week on Tuesday. Be safe and see you.
Peace. Peace. That way. Now you had it right.